All right, today we are jumping into a book that has seriously shaken up how millions of people think about happiness and freedom. It's called The Courage to be Disliked, and it's all about the psychology of Alfred Adler. The whole thing is set up as this amazing dialogue between a philosopher and a young man. So let's get into it and unpack these incredible ideas.
Right off the bat, the book just hits you with this idea. Freedom is being disliked by other people? That sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? But trust me, this one counterintuitive phrase is the key that unlocks everything we're about to talk about.
If you've ever felt stuck, like maybe you're a product of some bad stuff that happened in your past, or you're just constantly walking on eggshells trying to please everybody, then yeah, this book is talking directly to you. It basically argues that these feelings, they are not a life sentence.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the book's biggest, most challenging claim. Then we'll bust a couple of huge myths about how our minds work. After that, we'll zero in on what Adler says is the real source of our problems. And finally, we'll get to the solution, what it actually means to be free. Okay, so the whole book is this back and forth. You have this frustrated young man who's convinced life is just unfair and that his unhappiness is because of his circumstances. But then you have this philosopher who comes back with an idea that is so simple, but it changes everything.
And there it is. That's the core of it. The philosopher says your unhappiness isn't because of your past or your job or anything outside of you. He claims it's a choice you are actively making right here, right now. I know. That is a tough pill to swallow. But stick with me, because how they explain this is fascinating.
All right, let's get into the first big myth. This is a huge one for most of us. We're taught to believe that our past defines who we are today. I'm this way because of what happened to me. Well, Adlerian psychology comes along and just flips that idea completely on its head.
So on this slide, you're seeing two totally different ways to look at the world. On the left, you've got etiology, which is cause and effect thinking. It's what we're used to. I can't leave my room because of my past trauma. But on the right, you have Adler's view, which is teleology. This looks at the goal of our behavior. It asks, what am I trying to achieve? So instead, the thinking becomes, I am choosing not to leave my room in order to achieve the goal of getting my parents' attention and making them worry. See the shift? The goal is the driver, not the past.
Okay, get ready because this is probably the most shocking line in the entire book. Now, it does not mean that terrible things don't happen. Of course they do. What it means is that no experience by itself is the cause of our future success or failure. The point is, we are not defined by our experiences, we're defined by the meaning we give to them. We get to choose what our past means for our present.
Let's move on to the next big myth. The idea that our emotions are just these uncontrollable forces that happen to us. That they just wash over us and we're helpless. Adler says, nope, that's not what's happening at all.
And this coffee story from the book is the perfect example. So, a waiter spills coffee on you. You immediately start yelling. Why? The common sense answer is, the spilled coffee made me angry. But the philosopher says, no, you had a goal. To make the waiter submit, to take you seriously, to listen to you right now. And what's the fastest tool for that? Anger. So you didn't just get angry, you fabricated the emotion of anger to achieve your goal. You used it as a tool.
And that's a total game changer. If our emotions are actually tools, it means we have control over them. We're not just slaves to how we feel. We're actually using our feelings to get something done, even if we don't realize it.
Okay. So if our past doesn't define us, and our emotions are just tools we can choose to use, then where in the world do our problems actually come from? Well, the philosopher's answer is surprisingly simple.
Just let that sink in for a second. All of them. Every single one. That feeling of not being good enough at your job, the anxiety you feel about speaking in public. According to Adler, if you trace any problem back to its root, you will always find other people.
And the logic is pretty solid when you think about it. The very idea of feeling inferior or superior requires someone else to compare yourself to. If you were literally the only person in the entire universe, who could you be inferior to? The concept just vanishes. All our suffering is born from that social context. But here's where Adler makes a really important distinction.
So what's interesting is that Adler says a feeling of inferiority isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, it's good. It's that feeling that makes you say, hey, I could be better at this, and then go practice or study or train. It's the engine for all human progress. It only becomes a problem when it morphs into something else.
And this is the unhealthy version.
An inferiority complex is when you start using that feeling as an excuse. It's when you say, well, of course I can't do that. I'm not smart enough, or I'm not talented enough. You're using it as a shield to avoid taking on a challenge, to avoid taking responsibility.
Okay, so if all our problems are really about our relationships with other people, what are we supposed to do about it? I mean, we can't just become hermits, right? Well, this brings us to the most practical part of the book and right to the heart of its title.
The solution isn't to get rid of other people, but to totally change how we interact with them. And it all starts with learning how to draw a very, very important line in the sand. And here it is. This might be the most powerful, practical tool in the entire book. It's called the separation of tasks. All it is this simple but radical act of figuring out what's your business and what's someone else's business, and then staying out of their business.
And the way you do it is so simple. You just ask one question. Who ultimately receives the final result of this decision? Whoever that is, that person owns the task. And here's the rule. You do not interfere in other people's tasks, and you do not let other people interfere in yours. This isn't about being cold or mean. It's about genuine respect.
So just think about what this means. Whether or not your parents approve of your career choice, that's their task. It's about their feelings, their expectations. A friend's opinion of how you live your life, that's their task. And here's the biggest one of all. How other people perceive you, what they think of you, that is fundamentally their task. You have no control over it. Your only task is to make the best choices you can and live your life. And when you stop carrying the weight of everyone else's tasks, that is incredibly liberating.
And this brings us full circle, right back to that title. Real freedom isn't about being isolated. It's about living your life without trying to control how others feel, and not letting their feelings control you. When you truly separate your tasks from theirs, some people, they won't like your choices. They might even dislike you. And having the courage to say, that's okay. That's their task, not mine. That is what freedom really is. So in the end, the book's message is that you already have everything you need to be happy. It's not about learning some new skill or fixing some deep flaw. It's simply about having the courage to use the freedom you've always had, the courage to live authentically, even if it means some people won't like you for it. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. If you could truly, genuinely stop being afraid of what other people think, what's one thing you would finally do? Just for you.